The rain that night wasn't the soft, romantic kind. It was the hard, cold kind that rattled against the cracked windowpane of Emily Reeves's tiny studio apartment like it wanted to remind her she didn't belong in comfort. She sat on the edge of her bed, the only real piece of furniture she owned, one hand resting protectively over the slight swell of her belly, the other clutching her phone. Her thumb hovered over the screen, scrolling up and down the contact list, pausing over a name she'd told herself she'd never call again. Alex V. No emojis, no affectionate nickname, just two plain words that still had the power to twist her stomach into knots. 4 years ago, she'd met him in the most ordinary way, a late-night diner shift, a man who sat at the counter reading a newspaper instead of his phone. He'd been warm, attentive, the kind of man who asked about her day and actually listened to the answer. She hadn't known who he really was then, had no idea that Alexander Vale was the kind of man whose name appeared in financial magazines, whispered about in elite circles. They had 3 weeks together. Then, one morning, he was gone. No explanation, no goodbye, just silence. Life went on. Emily dated someone else, thought she'd found stability, until the day she told him she was pregnant, and he vanished without a word, leaving her with an empty bank account and a growing life inside her. Now, the grainy black and white ultrasound photo glowed on her phone screen, the faint outline of her baby like a fragile promise. Her baby's father was gone. Her rent was late, she didn't have family to turn to. And yet, she was about to send this to a man she hadn't spoken to in years. Her finger trembled as she typed. Greater than Emily. Hey, I don't know if you remember me. This is Emily. We met years ago. I wouldn't reach out unless I had no choice. I just thought you should see this. She attached the photo, closed her eyes, and pressed send. It was done. Thousands of miles away, in a glass-walled conference room atop a Singapore skyscraper, Alexander Vale was wrapping up a meeting with his executive team. His phone buzzed once against the polished table. He ignored it, until the meeting ended and he finally glanced at the screen. Emily Reeves. His pulse skipped. He opened the message. The ultrasound image hit him first, the meaning of it sinking in instantly. Then her words. He sat back in his chair, memories flooding in, the girl in the diner who'd laughed at his terrible jokes, who'd once told him she liked him better when he forgot to be charming. The girl who'd never asked for anything from him. His fingers moved without hesitation. Greater than Alexander. Where are you? Her reply came seconds later. Greater than Emily, Chicago. He checked the time. His private jet was fueled and ready at Shawnee Airport. Chicago was 14 hours away. He didn't care. Greater than Alexander. I'm sending a jet. Pack whatever you need. Back in her apartment, Emily read the words over and over. I'm sending a jet. It was absurd. Impossible. This was the sort of thing that happened in movies, not to women who clipped coupons and borrowed coats from neighbors. Greater than Emily. Alex, that's crazy. I'm not asking for. Alexander. You're not asking. I'm telling you. Be ready. And that was that. 12 hours later, Emily stood in the quiet warmth of a private terminal at Chicago O'Hare, her small suitcase at her feet. She told no one where she was going, partly because she wasn't sure herself. The jet landed with a low, steady hum. From it stepped Alexander Vale, dressed simply in a black sweater and tailored trousers. His hair was slightly mussed from the flight, but he still carried himself with the calm certainty of a man who'd never been told no in his life. He walked straight toward her. You look exactly the same, he said softly when he reached her. She gave a short, awkward laugh. You look richer. For a heartbeat, something like a smile flickered at his mouth before his gaze dropped to her belly. Is it mine? Emily's throat tightened. Yes. There was no accusation in his voice, no hesitation. Just a quiet shift in his expression, as if he'd silently made up his mind about something. Then you're coming with me, he said. She blinked. Where? Somewhere safe. I'm not in danger, she said, frowning. His jaw tightened. You don't know the circles I move in, Emily. If people know you're carrying my child, you become leverage. I'm not leaving you here alone. Her stomach churned. So you just expect me to get on a plane and disappear into your world? Yes, he said simply. Hours later, Emily found herself buckled into a wide leather seat, the jet's engines humming beneath her. Below them, the city lights of Chicago faded into darkness. Alexander sat beside her, his laptop open but his gaze often flicking toward her stomach, as if reminding himself the life inside her was real. Neither of them spoke much at first. She stared out the window, trying to make sense of how, in less than a day, she'd gone from worrying about grocery money to sitting on a billionaire's jet. Finally, she said, "Why now? Why respond at all?" He closed his laptop, turning fully toward her. "Because I should have never left. Because I thought disappearing would protect you back then. I was wrong. And because this," he nodded toward her stomach, "isn't something I'll ignore." She searched his face for any trace of the man she'd known years ago. "You could have ignored it. Most men would have." "I'm not most men," he said. "And you're not just anyone." The words sent a strange warmth through her chest, tangled with suspicion. When they landed in New York for a brief stop before continuing to his estate, black cars were waiting. Emily watched through the tinted windows as the city passed by, streets alive with lights and strangers. She felt suspended between two worlds, the life she'd been living and the one she was being pulled into. At his penthouse, the elevator doors opened to reveal floor-to-ceiling windows framing the skyline. Emily stood frozen, unsure whether to take off her shoes or ask permission to breathe. Alexander set her suitcase down. "This is just for the night. Tomorrow, we'll go somewhere quieter. Somewhere no one can reach you without my consent." She turned to face him. "I didn't agree to hide away in some gilded cage." "You're not a prisoner," he said evenly. "You're under my protection." Sounds like the same thing. His eyes narrowed, but instead of arguing, he stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Emily, I'm not doing this to control you. I'm doing this because I've already lost too much in my life to risk losing you, or our child." Her heart stuttered. She wanted to ask what he meant, but the look in his eyes stopped her. It was the look of a man who had built walls so high even he didn't remember what they were hiding. That night, she lay awake in the guest room, staring at the ceiling. The sheets smelled faintly of cedar and something warm she couldn't name. The city hummed softly beyond the glass. Part of her wanted to leave in the morning. Go back to her cramped apartment, her part-time job, her small, predictable life. But another part, the tired, lonely part, wondered if maybe, just maybe, Alexander was telling the truth. That maybe this wasn't just about control, or guilt, or obligation. Maybe it was about something else entirely. When she finally drifted off to sleep, it was with the faint memory of his voice in the jet, low and certain. "You're not just anyone." The private terminal was quiet, almost unnervingly so. Emily stood near the glass doors, wearing her neighbor's coat, her suitcase, a second-hand roller bag with one broken wheel, beside her. The jet touched down with barely a whisper. From it stepped Alexander, dressed in a dark sweater and tailored trousers. His hair was slightly mussed from travel, but there was no mistaking the quiet authority in the way he moved. When his eyes found hers, something unreadable passed over his face. He closed the distance between them in a few strides. "You look exactly the same," he said. Emily gave a nervous laugh. "You look richer." The corner of his mouth twitched, but his gaze dropped to her belly. "Is it mine?" "Yes." Her voice was steadier than she felt. He didn't flinch, didn't ask for proof. Just nodded once, as if sealing some silent agreement with himself. "Then you're coming with me." She blinked. "Where?" "Somewhere safe." Her brow furrowed. "I'm not in danger." His jaw tightened. "You don't know the circles I move in, Emily. If people find out you're carrying my child, you become leverage." "I won't let that happen." She hesitated. "And if I say no?" His eyes softened, not in defeat, but in something that looked like regret. "Then I'll have to find another way to protect you. But I'd rather you let me do it the easy way." An hour later, she was strapped into a wide leather seat, the hum of the jet beneath her feet. She stared out the window at the shrinking lights of Chicago, still trying to understand how her life had pivoted so violently in a single day. Alexander sat beside her, working on his laptop, though his attention seemed to keep drifting toward her. Finally, she broke the silence. "Why did you leave back then?" He closed the laptop slowly. "Because I thought walking away would keep you safe. I didn't want you dragged into my world." Her chest tightened. "And now," he said, his voice low, "there's more than just you to think about. And I won't make the same mistake twice." She searched his face for the man she'd known in that diner. There were pieces of him still there, the quiet intensity, the steadiness, but also something harder now, like steel forged in fire. They landed in New York for the night, his penthouse waiting at the top of a glass tower. The elevator doors opened to reveal a living space that looked like it belonged in a magazine, white marble, towering windows, the city stretching endlessly below. Emily stood frozen at the threshold, clutching her bag. This doesn't feel real. It will, Alexander said simply. Tomorrow, we'll head somewhere quieter. Until then, rest. She turned to him. I'm not just going to disappear into your life like some problem you can fix with money. You're not a problem, he said. You're the only thing in my life right now that matters. Her breath caught. She didn't trust the warmth blooming in her chest, not yet. But as she lay in the guest room that night, the city humming softly outside, she thought about the way he'd said it.